I'm going to explain the second generation leadership over this land in two ways. One is from a natural context, and the other one is from a spiritual context. So let me start just from the natural context. When God began to give me an oversight of this land, it actually started, the word came to me in 2006, and the word came to me on a trip I had to Botswana. And then I realized that there was something God wanted to do with this land. Now, but from 2007 particularly, he began to give me a deeper insight into what he was trying to do. And at that point in time, it was just before the elections that you had. And in the context of those elections, I was also spoken to very clearly about the election violence, all sorts of things that will happen. I won't go into too many details with regard to what we did with that information and all of that. But he had shown me a number of things. Now, consequent upon all the challenges that came up, you are aware that you now had a unity government, correct? Now, the problem in your unity government was this. You really didn't have anything in the constitution that made room for it. So essentially speaking, you had to start crafting something, and you began to craft something that would begin to now create another way of doing things, correct? And that was your constitutions. I'm speaking from a natural perspective. And then who's the first man who started the process in the new constitution? It's Uhuru Kenyatta. So from a natural perspective, he starts the second generation leadership concerned with as regards to the constitution, in the sense of the first cycle of putting a man in position based on the new constitution. So he's the first of the second generation. Everyone else was based upon something that was in the past, correct? If I'm wrong, somebody should correct me. But for second generation, spiritually speaking, the president himself, in the speech that I heard in the State of the Nation address, said, like Moses, who was on Mount Nebo, and he was correct, that's in scripture. And he looked and he saw the land of promise. Now, the land of promise is actually the land where God will reveal what is in his heart through the people. Manifestations. And he said that I've seen, and Moses saw the future. Now, what I was explaining is that Moses did not go into that land with them. This is not the leader that took them in. A second generation leadership, which is Joshua, now took them into that land and into that future. But in the same context of the spiritual aspect, something shifted in between Moses and Joshua. Most people don't pay attention. In the rulership of Moses, he used a rod. In the leadership or rulership of Joshua, he spoke. Very great differences. So spiritually speaking, there is an alteration that began to be opened up for people to step into as to how the realities of God can be established in the midst of a people. So Uhuru's coming, and that's why I tied it up to something else. There are two things his name means. We all know the meanings. One is liberty, freedom from bondage, or victory in a sense. And the second name is that which has been promised will be kept. Promise kept. So now, in the second generation leadership of Joshua, two things happened. They actually got into a land where they had victory, and then I had liberty to live out who they were, as opposed to how they were held in Egypt. The second one is the promise God had made them. I'll take you out of Egypt and take you into a land flowing with milk and honey. Is one level promise kept. And all the other manifestations that were tied to it were now promises kept. So in looking at the man's life, there's no accident as the first of the second generation leaders that his names actually reflect the purpose of God. And so that's what the second generation leadership means. Let me just add one more thing to that. It means that in the season that Joshua took over, a brand new set of leaders are coming. Because when now territories are being apportioned to people, the people to whom certain territories, and for you today, you must look at it in your socioeconomic terms, there are different arenas of our economy, of our lives, family, you just name it, that will begin to have leaders rise by the Spirit of God to begin to show how those areas can be dealt with to bring blessing and fruitfulness to the people of the land and to Africa as a whole, and then to the whole world. So the second generation leadership made room for a fresh kind of leadership that was now different from those who were leading when Moses was in charge.